My son was dying and desperately needed my kidney. My daughter-in-law looked me straight in the eye and said, "It's your obligation as his mother. You don't have a choice." The surgeons were already wheeling me into the operating room when my 10-year-old grandson burst through the door screaming, "Grandma, stop! I know why Dad really needs your kidney." The entire room went dead silent. The heart monitor was the only thing still beeping, loud and frantic, like it was trying to wake me up from a nightmare I'd walked into with my eyes wide open. If this story is already tearing at your heart the way it still tears at mine, please subscribe to Her Side right now. There are more truths like this one waiting, and I don't want you to miss the next one. Stay with me. I'm lying here on this freezing operating table in St. Mary's Hospital in Portland, Oregon. The overhead lights so bright they burn straight through my eyelids, turning everything behind my closed eyes a painful red. My arms are strapped down with thick Velcro that bites into my skin every time I breathe too deep. The IV in the back of my hand throbs like a second heartbeat, cold fluid crawling up my vein. The anesthesia cart is rolled up beside me, the syringe gleaming under the lights like it's eager to put me to sleep forever. I can smell the sharp sting of alcohol swabs mixing with that sterile hospital smell that never quite leaves your nose. I hear the snap of latex gloves, the squeak of shoes on linoleum, the paper gown crinkling against my damp back with every terrified shiver. Across the observation window stands my daughter-in-law, Vanessa, arms folded so tight her knuckles are white, staring at me like I'm a signature she's been waiting months to collect. Her lips barely move, but I can read them clear as day through the glass. Do it. Sign. Don't you dare back out now. There's no warmth in her eyes anymore, just that hard, polished gleam I used to mistake for confidence. I already did sign. The consent form is somewhere in that thick stack of papers with my shaky Janice Marie Keller scrawled across the bottom line on October 28, 2024, at exactly 9:17 a.m. I remember because the wall clock above the nurse's station ticked over right as the pen left my fingers. That shaky signature felt like handing over the last piece of myself I still owned, like signing away the rest of my life in blue ink. My son Ryan is in the next room, 38 years old, once 6'2" and solid as the Douglas firs that line the old highway outside our Beaverton house. Now he's a ghost of himself, cheeks hollow, skin the color of old newspaper, barely strong enough to lift his head from the pillow. The doctors keep saying his kidneys are failing fast, that I'm the only compatible donor in the entire family. A miracle match, they called it, with these big reassuring smiles. Miracle. That word has been echoing in my head for weeks, like a cruel joke someone keeps whispering when I'm trying to sleep. I raised Ryan and his younger brother Logan alone after their father walked out in 2009 with nothing but a duffel bag and a goodbye note on the kitchen counter. I cleaned offices at night until my hands cracked and bled, stocked shelves at the Fred Meyer on Cedar Hills Boulevard before the sun even thought about coming up, saved every extra dime so my boys would never know what an empty fridge feels like. I was the one who sat up with Ryan when he had pneumonia at 7, holding the vaporizer to his face while he coughed so hard I thought his little ribs would break. I worked double shifts so he could play travel baseball, drove him to practice in a rattling old Civic with no heat. I cried the day he married Vanessa in that little white chapel on Canyon Road because I thought finally someone else would love him the way I do, maybe even better. And now here I am, 66 years old, heart pounding so hard the monitor keeps skipping beats, about to give him one of my organs so he can live, while something deep in my gut, some ancient mother's instinct, screams that I'm about to die for a lie I've been too afraid to name. The nurse swabs the crook of my elbow again, colder this time, and the chill shoots straight to my bones. I shiver so hard the straps rattle like chains. I close my eyes and try to pray, "Lord, let this be right, let me be enough." But all I can see is Owen's face from last night, standing in my tiny kitchen under the flickering fluorescent light, clutching that cracked iPhone 8 like it was a live grenade. His voice had been so small. Grandma, please don't do it tomorrow. Mom's been putting stuff in Dad's drinks. I saw her. I recorded it. His eyes were huge and wet, pleading with me the same way Ryan used to when he was little and scared of thunderstorms. I told him he must be mistaken, that grown-up medicine looks scary to kids, that Vanessa loves her dad. She's a pharmaceutical rep. She's supposed to bring home samples, supposed to measure out pills with that tight little smile. Mothers-in-law imagine things, I told myself for the 100th time, rocking him while the kettle whistled lonely on the stove. I never watched the video. Guilt and fear and 38 years of putting Ryan first won. I climbed into that ambulance this morning telling myself a 10-year-old couldn't possibly understand the grown-up world. Now the surgeon, Dr. Mitchell, leans over me, his mask creasing as he smiles the way doctors do when they're trying to be kind. Janice, we're going to take good care of you. Just relax and count backwards from 10 for me, okay? 10. The number sticks in my throat. 9. I taste metal. 8. My hands won't stop shaking. The doors explode open so hard, the whole room shakes. Metal crashes against the wall, papers fly off a tray, someone gasps. Owen runs in, red-faced, uniform shirt half untucked, laces flapping, hair wild like he sprinted the whole way from school. A terrified orderly is chasing him yelling, "Code yellow! Child in the OR!" But Owen doesn't even slow down. He barrels straight to my side, slams his small hands on the rail, and the words rip out him raw and desperate. "Grandma! Dad doesn't need your kidney because he's doing. He needs it because Mom's been poisoning him for 14 months so she can harvest medical data for her company. I have proof. I recorded everything." He thrusts the phone up toward Dr. Mitchell like he's offering the only weapon he has. Vanessa's scream from behind the glass is inhuman, glass rattling. Animal. "He's lying! That boy is disturbed! Get him away from her!" But Dr. Mitchell has already taken the phone, his gloved thumb hovering, then pressing play. Vanessa's voice fills the room, calm, professional, recorded last March at 2:14 a.m. in what sounds like their cold garage. Phase 2 is almost complete. Once the transplant happens and we have the post-exposure panel on a live donor, the investors in Zurich will wire the final 8 figures. The old lady won't say no. She still thinks family means something. After that, we pivot to phase 3 with the pediatric cohort. And the husband? Vanessa laughs, and the sound is winter rain on tin roof, sharp and merciless. Ryan, by the time anyone figures out it was the compound and not idiopathic failure, he'll be recovered and grateful, and I'll be untouchable. 200 million reasons untouchable. The recording ends. The heart monitor is screaming now, erratic, like it's trying to tear itself off my chest. Dr. Mitchell's face drains of color. He looks from the phone to me, really looks at me for the first time, and then to Vanessa, who is pounding on the glass so hard her palms leave sweaty prints. "Shut it down," he snaps, voice suddenly steel. "Everything off. Call security in Portland PD right now. This is no longer a transplant, it's a crime scene." The anesthesia syringe is ripped away so fast the needle tears my skin, a hot line of blood running down my arm. Someone yanks the straps open. Warm blankets pile on me, like I'm the patient now, not the donor. I start sobbing, ugly, full-body sobs that hurt my ribs and blur the lights into halos. Because my grandson just saved my life with nothing but a cracked phone and courage bigger than the whole room. And because my son almost lost his to the woman he loved more than anything. Vanessa is still screaming when security drags her away, heels scraping linoleum. "It was for science! You don't understand the breakthrough! This could have cured cancer!" I understand enough. They wheel me out past the observation window. Vanessa's mascara is running in black rivers, but her eyes lock on mine, and they are pure, ice-cold rage. "You'll never prove it," she hisses as the cuffs click shut. "You're just a cleaning lady. I'm the one with the degrees." I find my voice for the first time in months, raw, shaking, but mine. "And I'm the one still breathing, Vanessa. Remember that." Security hauls her out. Her parents, Gerald and Diane, who spent weeks sitting in my living room lecturing me about a mother's sacred duty, are already in the waiting area, pretending they've never seen her before when the detectives walk in. Owen climbs onto the gurney with me, buries his wet face in my neck, and whispers, so only I can hear, "I'm sorry I didn't tell sooner, Grandma. I was so scared she'd hurt you worse if I did." I hold him so tight I feel his little heartbeat racing against mine. "You're the bravest person I've ever known, baby. You saved us both." That day in the operating room, everything changed. Let me take you back, deeper this time, so you really understand how we got here. I'm Janice Keller, 66, widowed since Tom dropped dead of a heart attack in the Fred Meyer parking lot in 2015. I still live in the same split-level house on Southwest 141st Avenue, where I rocked both my boys to sleep on a second-hand glider that squeaked something awful. The carpet is worn thin in the hallway from years of little boy feet running to greet me when I came home smelling like bleach and floor wax. The kitchen linoleum is cracked in the exact spot where Ryan dropped a cast-iron skillet when he was 10 trying to make me bed in bed. It's paid for. Every little dent and scratch in memory, and it's mine. Ryan was always the golden child, tall, easy laugh, the kind of boy coaches loved and girls wrote notes about. He played shortstop at Sunset High, got a full ride to Oregon State, came home and started his own small contracting business building decks and kitchen remodels for folks in Beaverton and Hillsborough. When he met Vanessa at a medical conference in Las Vegas in 2014, he called me from the hotel at 2 a.m. just to say, "Mom, I think I just met the woman I'm going to marry." She was beautiful, articulate, drove a brand new Lexus, talked about drug trials that were going to change the world. Ryan looked at her like she hung the moon, and for the first time in years, I let myself believe maybe I could stop worrying so much. They married in 2015 in that little chapel on Canyon Road with the stained glass windows that turned the light pink and gold. Owen was born in March 2015, and I held him the moment he came into the world, tears fogging my glasses because he was perfect, and I thought this was the happy ending I'd earned. Then slowly, so slowly, I didn't see it at first, Ryan started fading. First it was just being tired after work, then the swelling in his ankles he laughed off as too much salt, then the nights he couldn't keep food down, then the ER visits that turned into weekly blood draws, the diagnosis no one could explain, rapidly progressing glomerular disease, cause unknown. By early 2024, he was tethered to a dialysis machine 3 afternoons a week, coming home gray and shaky, falling asleep at the dinner table with his fork still in his hand. Vanessa moved them into a bigger house up in the West Hills, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view clear to Mount Hood on clear days. She said it was closer to her office downtown and better for Owen's school. She handled everything: the medications, the specialist appointments, the insurance appeals that went on for pages. She told me gently but firmly that my job was just to stay strong for Ryan, that stress wasn't good for either of us. I believed her, because believing her meant I didn't have to fight. I believed her when she slid the compatibility report across my kitchen table like it was gospel from Pacific Northwest Transplant Center. Perfect 6 out of 6 match, the rarest kind, a 1 in a million gift from God himself. I believed her on September 12, 2024, when she sat right where Ryan used to do his homework, folded her manicured hands and said, "Janice, if you love him, you'll do this. Mothers don't get to say no when their children need an organ." Her voice was soft, almost kind, but her eyes never left mine, like she was daring me to look away first. I believed Gerald and Diane 2 days later when they cornered me in my own living room, Gerald's heavy hand on my shoulder like we were old friends, saying, "Think of the legacy, Janice, saving your son's life. That's what good mothers do." Diane added, sharp as winter wind, "If you refuse, Ryan dies, and everyone will know exactly why." I signed the initial paperwork that night with a pen that bled ink onto my fingers, hands shaking so hard I had to steady one with the other. Logan tried to warn me. My younger boy has always been quieter, grease under his nails from the diesel shop out in Hillsborough, never married, never want to push. But he noticed things, how Vanessa always prepared Ryan's dialysis shakes herself behind closed doors, how she carried that locked briefcase everywhere like it held secret states, how she changed the subject fast whenever anyone asked exactly which trials she was managing downtown. He'd pull me aside after Sunday dinner and whisper, "Mom, something's not right. I feel it in my gut." I told him he was jealous of the big house, that Vanessa was under enormous stress, and that we had to trust family. I shut him down because facing the alternative felt like stepping off a cliff.
I was wrong, and that wrong almost cost me everything. The first real crack came in August when Owen stayed over because Vanessa had a work of urgency. I found him in the kitchen at 3 a.m., barefoot, tears shining on his cheeks in the refrigerator light. He said he'd heard his mom on the phone whispering, "The creatinine is exactly where we need it for the next data submission. Tell Zurich we're still on schedule." I hugged him and told him those were big, grown-up words, that his mom was just doing her job. But his little body shook against mine like a leaf in wind. Then in October, he showed me the photo he'd accidentally taken, Vanessa in their dark garage at midnight, handing a silver thermos to a man leaning against a black Audi with Swiss plates. Owen's small voice cracked when he asked, "Why is Mommy giving medicine to strangers in the dark, Grandma?" I still didn't want to believe. I told myself, pharmaceutical reps network at odd hours. I told myself, 10-year-olds exaggerate. I told myself I was too old and too tired to start a war inside my own family. So I kept saying yes. Yes to the psych evaluation where they asked if I felt pressured and I lied through my teeth. Yes to the living donor workup that left me bruised and exhausted. Yes to the surgery date of November 18th, 2024, circled in red on the calendar like a death sentence I'd agreed to. Yes, 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 until my grandson ran into an operating room with nothing but truth in his hands and screamed, "No," loud enough for the whole world to finally hear. After they wheeled me out, the police took Owen's phone, my tear-soaked statement, the consent forms, everything. They raided Vanessa's office downtown before the anesthesia had even worn off in my veins. In the locked briefcase, they found vials labeled only with batch numbers, research protocols stamped Project Aurora Confidential, bank records showing wire transfers from a shell company in Liechtenstein, $11.4 million already received, another $80 million promised the moment they delivered successful Phase 2 data from live-related donor. The poison was a synthetic compound engineered to mimic rare autoimmune kidney failure, slow, excruciating, nearly impossible to trace unless you knew exactly what to test for. Vanessa had been dosing Ryan for 14 months, adjusting it milligram by milligram so he would hit transplant stage right when her investors needed the final proof that her miracle cancer drug was ready for market. The total kidney shutdown was just acceptable collateral in her clinical language. Ryan had no idea his own wife was killing him for a payday. When the detectives told him 2 days later, he curled into a ball and vomited into a pink hospital basin, then cried like the little boy who once fell off his bike and needed 6 stitches in his chin while I held him on the bathroom counter singing, "You Are My Sunshine," off-key. I climbed into that bud and held him while his whole world shattered, whispering over and over, "You're here, baby. You're still here. That's all that matters." They started him on the real treatment that same week. Chelation to flush the poison, temporary dialysis, a new drug panel that actually heals instead of destroys. Slowly, the yellow left his skin. One morning, I found him standing at the window watching the rain, and he turned and gave me the first real smile I'd seen in a year. Vanessa and her parents were indicted on attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, and half a dozen other charges that filled 2 whole pages when the U.S. attorney read them out loud. The prosecutor called it the most sophisticated medical research fraud scheme in Oregon history. Trial is set for next fall. I'll be there every single day. I moved Ryan and Owen into the house on 141st, the same day Vanessa was arrested. That first night, Owen crawled into my bed like he did when he was 4, whispered into my neck, "I didn't want you to die, Grandma. I didn't want either of you to die." I kissed his hair that still smelled like little boy shampoo and said, "You made sure we didn't, sweetheart. You saved both of us." Some nights I still wake up gasping, fingers clawing at my side for the scar that never happened, feeling phantom pain where my kidney would have been. The air tastes metallic, like the operating room. And for a second, I can't remember which side of the nightmare I'm on. But then I hear Owen's laugh echoing down the hallway, or Ryan humming off-key while he makes coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and I remember, I still have both kidneys. I still have my boys. I still have me. I sold the big house in the West Hills. Turns out the deed was never fully in Ryan's name alone. With my half of the proceeds, I paid off the tiny mortgage on 141st and put the rest in a trust for Owen's college. He wants to be a detective now, says he wants to help other grandmas. I started therapy every Thursday at 10 a.m. with Dr. Alvarez in a quiet office that smells like lavender and tissues. She says I spent decades believing love meant self-erasure, that saying no made me a bad mother. We're working on unlearning that one shaky no at a time. Logan comes over every Sunday without fail. We fire up the old Weber grill in the backyard, burn a few steaks, drink iced tea on the porch swing that still creaks the same as when the boys were little. Sometimes we talk about what happened. Most Sundays we don't have to. Some weeks just breathing the same air is enough. And every evening when the sun drops behind the Douglas firs and paints the sky that soft Oregon pink, I sit on my porch with a cup of chamomile steaming in my hands and feel the cold steel of that operating table all over again. But now, when I close my eyes, I don't see Vanessa's triumphant stare through the glass. I see Owen, small, fierce, 10 years old going on 100, shouting the truth that saved my life. That's the image I carry now. That's the one I fall asleep to. Family isn't just blood. Sometimes it's the child who refuses to let you bleed, even when the whole world tells him to stay quiet. If you've ever been told that love means giving until there's nothing left of you, if you've ever signed your name while your hand shook and your heart screamed no, leave a comment below and tell me, did you find the strength to say no? You're not alone, I promise. And if this story hit close to home, subscribe to Her Side. There are more women just like us finding their voice, one terrifying, beautiful truth at a time, and I don't want you to miss the next one. We all deserve to keep both our kidneys and our dignity. Thank you for listening.